I was standing in my kitchen with a coffee mug I hadn't even sipped yet when I heard my son say something that cracked my chest open from the inside. He was in the next room on the phone with his wife, thinking I couldn't hear. "Yeah, baby," he said, all proud and smiling in his voice. "It's done. The house is ours. Riley's mum is moving into the downstairs suite. She'll have her own patio and everything. I told her she never has to worry again. We're doing this as a real family." I remember the way those last two words hit me. Real family. I pressed my hand flat on the counter so I wouldn't fall, because for a second I couldn't feel my legs. Before I go any further, I want to say something to whoever's listening to me right now. This isn't just a story about money. This is about what love costs you when you keep giving it to people who only take. This is Revenge Stories with Michelle, a home for quiet courage and true endings. If you feel what I'm saying, please like the video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Your voice matters here. Your story matters too. Now I'll tell you mine, and I'll tell you everything. My name is Marisol. I am 71 years old. I am not weak. People hear 71 and they picture a little woman in a soft sweater who does puzzles and keeps mints in her purse. They don't see what those years actually held. They don't see the night shifts, the double work, the knees that ache when it's going to rain, the way you learn to swallow hurt without letting it show on your face because you still have to feed people in the morning. They don't see the parts of you that have been stepped on so long you forgot they used to stand up straight. My son's name is Andre. I raised him on my own in a 2-bedroom apartment behind a grocery store in East Harbour. His father took off when Andre was 6, and after that it was just us. I had 2 jobs. I worked mornings as a receptionist at a dentist's office and nights at a laundromat, folding people's clothes while he did his homework on the counter. We used to share fries and jokes at midnight from the diner next door. He used to fall asleep on my lap while the dryers hummed. He used to tell me, "You're my favourite person in the world, Mum. When I grow up, I'm going to buy you a house so you don't ever have to worry again." I held onto that promise like a little light in my hand for almost 40 years. I kept it with me when the rent went up. I kept it when the car died. And I had to take the bus in the cold. I kept it when I sold my wedding ring to pay his tuition for his auto tech program. I kept it when I said no to new shoes for myself so he could get cleats for soccer. I loved that boy so hard that some days it scared me. I used to tell him, "You are my heart," walking around outside my body. He grew up. That's what sons do. They grow up and they have their own lives. That part didn't scare me. I wanted him to have his own life. I wanted him to have better. He met Riley when he was 31. She was younger than him by almost 10 years with long, straight hair and that perfect kind of makeup that makes you think she wakes up like that. Riley worked in medical billing and she always talked like she knew everything. I tried. I truly tried. When Andre brought her over the first time, I made arroz con pollo and flan from scratch. She didn't eat either one. "I don't really do rice," she said, like rice was a drug. But I smiled. I told myself, "Be patient. She'll warm up." She never warmed up from the first year of their marriage. I saw it. He stopped coming by on Sundays. He stopped calling me just to tell me something funny that happened at work. And when I did see him, suddenly he was careful with what he said, like he didn't want to get in trouble. I noticed how Riley would answer questions I asked him. "How's work going, mijo?" I'd ask, and she would say, "He's doing fine. He just needs to focus more, but he'll get there." She'd pat his arm like he was a boy. He would laugh like that was cute. I didn't think it was cute. I thought it was a hand closing around his throat, but I said nothing. "That's important for you to know." I said nothing. I don't like drama. I don't like shouting. I don't like scenes. I like peace. I like to cook and sit in quiet and know the people I love are okay. So when it started, the tiny shifting of "Mum, I'll come by tonight," to "Sorry, Mum, we're busy," I stayed quiet. When it changed from "Mum, I miss you," to "Mum, can you send me a little something till Friday?" I stayed quiet. I stayed quiet because I thought that's what love does. Love doesn't always have to speak to be loud. That's what I told myself. I started helping them with money long before the house. First it was 400 here, 200 there. "Mum, Riley's car insurance lapsed and they're charging her a fee." "Mum, daycare went up again. We're short this month just until payday." "Mum, the landlord wants a bigger deposit or we'll lose the place." There is no pain like watching your own child sound scared, so I always said yes. "Of course, Miho, of course. I'll see what I can do." Sometimes I had to pretend I wasn't behind on my own bills just so his pride wouldn't feel heavy. I would joke with him, "You owe me a mansion, remember?" And he would laugh and say, "Oh, I got you." That's how the house came up. It wasn't supposed to go the way it went. It was supposed to be a happy thing. One night, about 8 months ago, Andre came over alone without Riley, without the kids. That alone felt like something important. He hadn't come alone in forever. He sat at my little round table, the same one he did his homework on in middle school. And he reached for my hands. "Mum," he said, "I found it, the house." His voice sounded like it used to sound, like the boy who told me he'd build me a porch and get me a rocking chair. He told me about this place in Maple Point. Maple Point is one of those new developments outside the city with clean sidewalks, little trees in a row, and names like Fox Hollow Lane and Meadowbrook Court. He said it had a fenced yard, a finished basement, 3.5 bathrooms, and a sunroom you are going to love, Ma. It faces east. You'll get the soft sun in the morning. I know how you like that kind of light. I saw it already in my mind while he spoke. Me sitting with a blanket on my lap, coffee in my hand, the sound of kids in the next room watching cartoons on Saturday morning, my son in the kitchen making eggs, all of us together. I pictured holidays, I pictured birthdays with me in the middle of the table instead of at the end like an extra chair. I pictured not being alone. He said, "We're going to do this right. You won't be in some back room like an afterthought. You'll have your own door to the yard. If your knees hurt, you won't even have to take the stairs. You'll be with us. We'll take care of you. You took care of me. It's our turn." I started crying. I didn't even try to stop it. I cried into his hands like I hadn't cried in years. He wiped my tears with his thumb, and for a moment I thought, he came back. My boy came back. Then he told me the only problem, we're short on the down. We need 25 to lock it in. We only have 9. Riley's mum said she can maybe do 2 if she pulls from her credit line, but that still leaves 14. I wouldn't ask you, Mum, but this is the only chance. This builder's giving us a deal. After this, the price jumps. We'll lose it. I sat back. How much do you need from me, Mijo? He swallowed. 12. Oh, yeah. I didn't have 12 sitting around in my checking, but I did have a little more than that in savings. My savings was not luck. My savings was my life. My savings was what I had built from scraping and denying myself and rolling coins into paper tubes at the end of the month. My savings was what gave me a sense of safety when I woke up scared at 3 a.m. My savings was what told me, if you get sick, you won't die in debt. You'll be okay. I told him, yes, you may hear that and ask why. You might be thinking, you're 71, you need that money for you. And you're right. But hear me. When you are a mother and the only person you have left in this world is the child you held through fevers and heartbreak, and that child is sitting at your table asking you for help to build something that is supposed to include you, you say yes. You say yes because you have been dreaming of being included longer than you've been dreaming of retirement. I went to the bank with him the next day. He sat next to me while I signed. He kissed my cheek in the lobby. He said, "This is for us, Ma. We're doing this as a family. You're not going to be alone anymore. I promise you that." I walked out of that bank shaking but happy. I felt useful. I felt loved. That's the truth. I felt loved. Now fast forward to the phone call. I didn't mean to listen. I wasn't trying to sneak. He was in my living room. He talks loud. My bedroom door was cracked. I heard him before I could even think to move. "Yeah, baby," he was saying, "I just left Mum's. She doesn't suspect a thing. I told her she's going to love the sunroom. She ate it up. She'll stay in her little place, like we said. Riley, trust me, I've got this." I felt something go cold inside me. I didn't even feel angry yet. Not at first. I felt hollow, like someone took a spoon and scooped me out. I kept listening. Andre laughed a little. "Oh, no, of course your mum is moving in. You think I'm going to tell Miss Paulette she can't have the downstairs after we promised? We already said she could sell her condo and move in with us, so she won't be alone. I'm not about to take that back. My mum will understand. She's good at making do. Oh, she's tough. You know how she is." I had to sit down. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the floor. "Miss Paulette, that's Riley's mother. I had nothing against her. We're polite with each other at birthdays. She brings those store cupcakes with too much icing. But this was different. Do you understand? My son, my only child, my once favourite person in the world, had just said in plain words that the home I helped buy was for his wife and his wife's mother, not me. I wasn't a quiet blessing in that future. I wasn't a chair at the table. I was a problem he had already solved behind my back. He had made a plan where I was left behind in my one-bedroom walk-up while a woman I barely knew took the space he told me was mine. That was the first slice. The second slice was softer, almost nothing. It was how he said it. She's good at making do, like I was a rag that could absorb anything and not complain. That's when anger came. Real anger. Not the little flare you feel when someone cuts you off in traffic. I'm talking about the anger that forms like metal in your blood, an anger with weight, an anger that stands up inside you and says, "No, not this time." I sat in the dark on the edge of my bed and whispered out loud so my own ears could hear it. Not this time. He hung up not long after that. He walked into my room all smiles. "Ma, you awake?" he said, like he hadn't just set fire to everything I believed in. I stretched my mouth into something that looked like a smile. I said, "Yes." I said, "Did the inspection go okay?" And he said, "Perfect. We're signing final on Tuesday. You're going to be so proud of me." When he said that, something small inside me flipped. Proud. He wanted me proud. He wanted to be seen like a good son. He wanted that ribbon. He wanted my approval, like a gold sticker on his forehead. And right then, even before I had a full plan, I realised something. I still had the one thing I didn't even realise I had: power. I had power because I had proof, and he didn't know that yet. The first thing I did was call my neighbour, Gloria. Gloria lives across the hall from me. She's 74 and mean as a cat when she wants to be, but she loves me like a sister. We watch each other's doors. We bring each other soup when one of us is sick. We sit in the laundry room downstairs and talk about the people in the building like we're watching a series. If you are older and you live alone, you need one Gloria in your life. I walked over and knocked. She opened in her house dress, hair in rollers, slippers with fur on them. "Girl," she said, "you look like you swallowed a nail. Sit down." I told her everything. I told her about the house, about the money, about the promise of the sunroom, my sunroom, about Miss Paulette and the downstairs suite, about real family, about she'll make do. I told her word for word what I heard because I didn't trust my brain not to soften it. I needed to hear it raw. Gloria never interrupted. She just sat with her arms crossed, her mouth getting tighter and tighter. And when I finished, she leaned back in her chair and let out a slow breath. "Oh," she said, "so that's how we're playing." That word felt like a hand on my shoulder. I didn't even know I needed that until I got it. Gloria kept going. "Let me ask you something, Murray. Is your name on that house?" "No," I said. "The loan is in Andre and Riley's name. Is there any paper that says what you gave them wasn't a gift?" I blinked. "What?" "Receipt, agreement, loan note, anything." I shook my head. "No, he's my son. I didn't ask for that." Gloria rolled her eyes to the ceiling like she was praying for patience. "Okay, so first lesson. We've fixed that. Too late," I said. "They already got the money." "Baby," she said, and her voice dropped lower, softer. "It's not too late for you to tell the truth about what that money was. But you got to start writing your own story down. You hear me? Because they're writing one without you in it." I didn't sleep that night. I pulled out a spiral notebook from the drawer with the rubber bands and the tape and all the little things you keep because they might be useful. I sat with a pen and I started writing. Every time Andre had asked me for money, every time I had given it, every reason he gave, how much, what day, what for. I went back 5 years. I went through old bank records. I wrote down cash I pulled from the ATM. I wrote March 12th, $600, said daycare was raising rates. I wrote June 3rd, $1,200, transmission went out, he couldn't get to work. I wrote September 20th, $400 for Riley's dental crown, said she was in pain. I wrote all of it. Then I added the 12 for the house. When I finished, I sat there staring at the total. $51,800. I covered my mouth with my hand. You think you know. You don't know. You don't know until you see it all lined up in ink. That number was more than a dollar amount. That number was my back pain. That number was my skipped doctor appointments. That number was clothes I kept mending instead of replacing. That number, though, was birthdays I spent alone because Andre said they were too tired to do anything big this year, and could I spot them just until Friday? People like to say older women are soft. Number, older women are made of rope. We can hold so much and still not break. But rope burns. I looked at that number and I said it out loud, in an empty room, "This is not love." The next day I did two things. First, I got dressed like I was going to church and went to the credit union. I talked to a woman at the desk named Trina. She was maybe 40, hair in braids, kind eyes, very straightforward. I told her I wanted to move what I had left in checking and savings to a new account under only my name with no linked cards, except the one in my purse. I told her I wanted to remove Andre as an authorized user. She nodded. She didn't judge me. She didn't ask why. She just did it. When she slid the new papers across to me, I felt like someone had put air back in my lungs. Second, I called a lawyer. Now listen, because this part matters. If you're older and you're listening to me, I want you to hear this. You are allowed to talk to a lawyer. It doesn't make you evil. It doesn't make you dramatic. It makes you smart. It means you're finally protecting yourself the same way you spent decades protecting everyone else. I didn't know any lawyers. I'm not that kind of woman. But Gloria's niece, Tasha, works part-time at a legal clinic downtown. Gloria called her. Tasha gave me a number. He does elder stuff. She said, wills, property, caregiver fraud, all that. He's not cheap, but he's good. He's not going to treat you like you're slow. He's going to talk to you like a person. His name was Marco Alvarez. He sounded calm on the phone. He told me to come in the next afternoon and bring any paperwork I had about the house, the transfers, the promises, any texts, any voicemails, anything that showed who said what. Promises. That word, I'd never thought of promises as paperwork, but they are. If you're listening to this, remember that. Promises, when they're said out loud, can be evidence. So I gathered what I had. I printed the text where he said, Ma, this house is for all of us. Your room is on the first floor, so your knees don't got to fight the stairs. You're going to be so happy. I printed my bank withdrawal slips. I printed screenshots of Andre telling me, we'll take care of you. You're not going to be alone. I printed everything. When I walked into Marco's office, I felt nervous, but also strangely tall. The office was small, carpet clean, diplomas on the wall, a plant slowly dying in the corner, the way all office plants die. He shook my hand and made me sit in the big chair, not the little one. That sounds like nothing. It wasn't nothing. I told him the story. All of it. I didn't leave out the parts that made me look foolish. I told him I trusted my son. I told him I believed the room was for me. I told him I didn't ask for paperwork because I thought love was enough. I told him I heard the call about Miss Paulette. I told him the phrase real family. Marco didn't make a face. He didn't say, oh no, or wow. He just leaned forward a little and said, okay, here's what we're going to do. He said it like we had already decided something together. Number one, he said, you will not give them another cent, not $1. Don't say, let me think about it. Don't say, maybe. The answer is no. You understand me? Yes, I said. Saying yes felt good in my throat. Number two, I'm going to draft a repayment agreement today, right now. It's going to say exactly how much you gave toward that down payment and that money was not a gift. You did not make a gift. You made a loan with the expectation of shared housing care and support. That was the promise. That is the condition. We'll put that in plain words. I blinked. But I didn't say that like official. We just talked at my table. And that, he said, tapping one of the screenshots, is where he put it in writing. You're going to be with us. We'll take care of you. That is a support commitment. If he is now changing the plan, that means he is breaking the agreement, which means we call it what it is, financial exploitation of a senior family member. For a second, I forgot to breathe. Exploitation, I repeated. It's an ugly word, he said, because what happened to you is ugly. I sat there with that for a long moment. I felt tears coming up, but they weren't sad tears. They were angry tears. Angry, but also proud. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't being difficult. I was being used. Marco wasn't done. Number 3, he said, we're going to update your will today. We're going to make sure your name is on record as owning whatever you own. We're going to protect your apartment. We're going to protect what's in your accounts. We're going to make sure that if something happens to you, your son cannot just walk in here and empty your life like a shopping cart. I covered my mouth again. People do that, I whispered. Every day, he said. He pulled a yellow pad across the desk and clicked his pen. Who do you trust to receive something from you when you're gone? And I don't mean out of obligation, I mean out of love. You ever have a question sit in front of you like a mirror? That was one. I thought of Andre. I thought of that little boy in hand-me-down pajamas, drawing me a picture of a house with a red roof and a porch swing and 2 stick figures out front. I thought of the teenager who used to get in trouble at school for talking back to teachers who said his English was too street. I thought of the young man who stood next to me at the bus stop in the cold and said, "One day I'll drive you everywhere you want to go, Ma." I also thought of the man who had stood in my living room the night before and called another woman's mother real family, like I was an old jacket he'd outgrown. I swallowed hard. My mouth tasted like metal. "Gloria," I said. Marco smiled just a little. "The neighbour? Yes, she looks out for me. I look out for her. We're not blood, but she's never made me beg to be included in her life. She tells me the truth. She calls me. She shows up. That's family." He nodded and kept writing. And that's how Gloria's name went where Andre's used to be. And not because I don't love my son. I do. I love him so much it splits me open. But loving someone and trusting them are not the same thing. I wish more mothers were allowed to say that out loud without people calling them cold. When I left Marco's office, I had a folder in my purse. Inside that folder was a copy of the loan agreement for the down payment, a draft of my new will, and information about filing a report if Andre tried to retaliate or pressure me. I tucked that folder under my arm like it was made of gold. Truth is, it was worth more than gold. It was the first time in my life my protection felt like something I had earned instead of something I hoped for. Now, I'm going to pause the timeline for a second because I want to say this to you directly while you're still here with me. This is Revenge Stories with Michelle. This space is where we start telling the truth about the things nobody wants to talk about. If you're listening and some part of you is saying, "That's me, that's what they're doing to me," I want you to leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. You're not alone in this. You're not crazy. You're not greedy for wanting respect. You're allowed to be loved out loud. Don't let anybody convince you you're asking for too much just because you're asking for the bare minimum. Back to Andre. He showed up at my door 2 days later, not with Riley. I noticed that he came alone. I watched him from my peephole first. He was pacing in the hallway, running his hand over the back of his neck, looking like a teenager, about to get in trouble. I opened the door. "Ma," he said. He tried to smile. It didn't reach his eyes. "You weren't answering my calls." "I know," I said. He waited for me to invite him in. I didn't. I stood in the doorway. That seemed small. It wasn't small. That was the first time in his adult life that I made him wait for permission to enter my space. He noticed. His eyebrows twitched. "Can I come in?" he asked after a long second. "Yes," I said. I stepped aside. He sat at the table. Same table, same chair he sat in when he told me about the house. I sat across from him with my hands folded, not nervous, calm, tired, but calm. He took a breath. "Okay," he said. "So, Riley said I messed up. She said I should have told you sooner. So, I'm telling you now. We weren't trying to hide nothing from you." I tilted my head. "You weren't hiding anything from me?" He swallowed. "We were just trying to make it smooth. For everybody. You know how change stresses you out? I let that pass. I wanted to hear what he'd say, not what I'd say." And he kept going. "We can't have you move in right away, Ma. That's all. That's what this is. We just can't do it right away. The timing is bad. Riley's mum already gave notice to her landlord and she's selling her condo. She doesn't have anywhere else to go. We can't just leave her with nothing. That wouldn't be right." "What about me?" I asked. He blinked. "What? What about me not having anywhere else to go?" He laughed a little, like he thought I was joking. "Ma, you got your place." I got a one-bedroom walk-up with stairs, getting harder for me every year, and rent I can barely hold on to. That's what I have. And you told me, not even 2 months ago, that I wouldn't have to worry about that anymore. You said, "We'll take care of you." Those were your words, Andre. He rubbed his face with both hands. "Ma, please, don't do this. Don't make me feel like the bad guy." That right there. That's when my sadness turned into anger again, because that's what this kind of thing does. It flips the story. It makes the one who's getting used look like the one causing trouble. "So I'm not making anything," I said softly. "You already did that." He went quiet. I slid the folder onto the table. So he looked at it. "Well, what's that?" "This," I said, "is the agreement. The one that says the money I gave you was not a gift. It was a loan with the promise of shared housing and care. It also lists the rest of the money I've given you over the last 5 years. It calls it what it is. Financial support from me to you." So this talk you and Riley have been having about how you're the ones taking care of me. That's done. Now, we're not saying that anymore. We're going to talk like adults, using real words. Do you understand? His face went pale. "Where'd you get that?" "My lawyer," I said. He laughed then, laughed like I had told him a joke. "Your lawyer," he repeated, like the idea of me having one was funny. "Ma, come on. Riley's mum said she's seen this before. You don't want to get the state all in your business. It could mess up your benefits." I leaned forward. "Baby, I don't get benefits. I live off my Social Security. And the little I've saved, that's it. That's what you've been draining, and I'm done." He flinched like I'd slapped him. I hadn't even raised my voice. He opened the folder with shaking hands. I watched his eyes skim the first page, the summary of total funds I had given him. His mouth fell open. "Why you put it like this," he whispered. "Because that's what happened," I said. He kept flipping pages. As his breathing got louder. He hit the page where Marco had written in plain, clean language that I had been promised living space in exchange for the down payment, and that failure to provide that space could be considered financial exploitation of an elder. He looked up at me with wide eyes. "You going to call the cops on me?" I let out a breath. "Andre, listen to me. I am not trying to destroy you. I am trying to stop you from destroying me." He covered his face again. His shoulders shook. For a second I thought he was crying. He wasn't. He was shaking from anger. He dropped his hands and his face was hard in a way I had never seen on him. "Riley said this was going to happen," he muttered. "She said you were going to make this ugly." There it was. "Riley, you heard that, right?" Riley said. "Not I feel, not I think we should talk." Riley said. My grown son, who I carried and loved and sacrificed for, had given his whole steering wheel to someone else, and now he was pissed that I'd grabbed the brake. "I'm making it honest," I said. "Ugly was when you stood in my living room and told another woman her mother was your real family. Ugly was when you took my money while making plans for me to make do alone. Ugly was when you talked about me like I was a problem instead of a person." He stared at me. I stared back. Sometimes silence is the loudest thing you can say. He finally whispered, "So what now?" "Now," I said, and I felt it as I said it, the way a door feels when it locks. "Now you're going to sign that you received that down payment as a loan with conditions. You're going to sign that you owe it back if those conditions aren't met. And you're going to stop asking me for money, ever, Andre. I mean ever, because I don't have it to give anymore, and because even if I did, I would not give it to someone who treats me like I am a duty instead of a blessing." He shook his head. "You're really doing this to me." "Andre," I said one last time, "I am doing this for me." He didn't sign that day. He said he needed to talk to Riley. When he left with his jaw tight and the papers under his arm, I watched him walk down the hall, and I knew I had just changed something I could never unchange. A part of me ached so bad I wanted to sit on the floor and bawl. Another part of me stood taller in my own doorway than I had stood in years. Both parts were true. Here is where some people think the story stops. The mum stands up for herself. The son feels bad. The daughter-in-law backs down. Everyone hugs. The end, lesson learned. That is not what happened. What happened next was worse and better. The next morning, my landlord knocked on my door. He's a little man named Ernest, who wears his belt too high, like a cartoon. He never comes up unless something is wrong. He said, "Ms. Vega, so sorry to bother. I just need you to sign this notice. It's about your unit." My stomach dropped. "What kind of notice?" "It's just the ownership of the building is changing hands this month. The new owner is planning some upgrades, so several units are being reassessed for rent adjustments. Nothing personal rent adjustment. That's a pretty word for you're about to be priced out." I took the paper from him. I read it. My rent was going up by $280 starting in 60 days. My hands started to shake. I couldn't afford that. I barely made it as it was. 280 might as well have been 2,000. I looked up at Ernest. "And if I can't pay that," he sighed, "then the lease won't renew, Ms. Vega." I just stood there holding that paper like it was a bomb I didn't know how to defuse. When he walked away, I shut the door and locked it and slid to the floor. I didn't cry. I just sat there shaking. You know that anger I told you about, the one that felt like metal? It turned into something else, something sharp and focused. It turned into a kind of fire, because right then I understood the whole picture. Andre and Riley were not just keeping me where I was comfortable. They were about to leave me homeless. Make do. What a joke. I called Marco so fast my fingers slipped on the screen. I told him what happened. He got quiet. Then he said, okay. Then we do step 4. Oh, what's step 4? I asked. We stopped playing nice? That same afternoon, he filed a notice of intent. I don't know all the legal words, but I'll tell you what it means in plain talk. Yeah, he let Andre and Riley know that if they did not immediately sign the repayment agreement and confirm in writing that I would have a permanent living space in that house, we were going to pursue recovery of funds, plus damages, plus fees, and we were going to inform Adult Protective Services about possible financial abuse. Adult Protective Services. I didn't even know we had that. I thought that was just for people in nursing homes. But no, it's also for people like me, people who get squeezed because someone thinks they're too tired to fight. Within 2 hours, my phone rang. Not Andre, Riley. She didn't even say hello. She went straight in. Why are you trying to ruin our lives? I almost laughed. Good afternoon to you too, Riley. You're threatening us with court, she said. You're trying to embarrass us. You want to call us abusers? You're going to say that about your own son? Your only son? My only son is the one who said I wasn't real family, I said softly. She went quiet. Then her voice changed. It got sweet. You know that tone women use when they're about to sell you poison and call it lemonade? Marisol, she said, be reasonable. You don't want to live with us. You like your independence. You said so yourself. You said you don't want to be in our business. You told me that. I smiled to myself because here's the thing. She was right. I had said those words, but she left out the next part. I had said, I don't want to be in your business. I just don't want to be alone. That part always goes missing when people retell what you said to make themselves look good. Riley, I said, I'm going to say this once. I am not going to argue. I am not going to beg. I am not going to cry. Here's how this is going to go. You and Andre are going to sign the repayment agreement. You are going to confirm that I will have a permanent place in that house. You are going to stop talking about me like I am trash, and you are going to stop calling me unless it is to tell me you love me or to wish me a good day. That's it. If you don't like any of that, you can take it up with Marco, she snarled. I swear I could hear it through the phone. Who is Marco? My lawyer, I said, and I hung up. Now, some of you might be thinking, that's it? That's the revenge? She lawyered up. She said, no, listen to me. Sometimes the loudest revenge is not the house burning down. Sometimes the revenge is you finally stepping back and letting other people feel the horror they always meant for you. Sometimes the revenge is that you stop cushioning the fall. But I'm going to be honest with you. That's not where it ended. Something else happened, something I didn't expect, something I still don't know how to feel about. 3 days later, Andre came back. He didn't knock like before. He knocked soft this time. I could tell by the knock that his shoulders were down. When I opened the door, his eyes were red. Real red. Not fake red. He looked like he hadn't slept. He walked in without waiting, and he just stood in my living room, looking around like he hadn't been there in years. His voice was small. You changed the curtains, he said. I did, I said. Gloria helped me pick them. The old ones were sun-faded. We nodded like that mattered. Then he sat. He didn't reach for me. He didn't try to hug me. He just sat with his elbows on his knees and his hands hanging loose. After a long minute, he said, Riley's mad. I imagine so. She said you're trying to own me. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It just came out. He looked up, surprised. Andre, I said, I don't want to own you. I want you to remember I am not something you can spend and replace. He rubbed his face again. Then so soft I almost didn't hear it, he whispered, Ma, I didn't mean for it to go like this. Something in me cracked then, but not in the way it had before, not like breaking, more like letting something old leak out. What did you mean for it to do? I asked. He swallowed hard. I just wanted everybody taken care of. I blinked. Everybody! He nodded fast. Riley was crying, Ma. You didn't see. When Miss Paulette had that scare last year and thought she had a stroke, Riley stayed up for 2 nights straight. She was so scared of losing her mum. She kept saying, if something happens to her, I'll never live with myself. I couldn't tell her no. I couldn't tell her, my mum needs the space, not yours. I couldn't do that to her. I couldn't make her feel like her mum wasn't part of the plan, you know? I stayed quiet. He kept going. And then you're all I got. I can't have you up them stairs no more. You fell last winter. I saw the bruise. You said it was nothing, but it covered half your back. You scared me. I don't even sleep some nights thinking about you being here by yourself. I can't lose you either. So I tried to promise both of you everything, and it got twisted. That word hung in the room like smoke. For a second, I saw it all from above, like I was looking down on the board, Riley crying over Miss Paulette, Andre stuck between 2 women he loves, both of them needing him, me sitting with my quiet hope, clutching his promise like a lifeline, all of us scared for our own reasons, all of us acting out of fear, all of us doing it in secret. That's what poison does, not money, not houses. Secrets. Secrets rot people. I let out a slow breath. Andre, I said, look at me. He did. I believe you love me. I said, don't you ever think I don't know that. I know you do, but loving me and protecting me are not the same thing. Baby, you did not protect me. You threw me into the dark so you wouldn't have to feel torn. You tried to make me disappear so you wouldn't have to feel guilty with Riley. You made me the easy sacrifice. You hear me? You chose the one you thought wouldn't complain. His face twisted like he'd been punched. Tears spilled over. Ma, I swear I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I could fix it. I thought after we were settled I could come get you and make it right. How? I asked. Where were you going to put me? In the garage, in the laundry room, on the porch, in chair like a plant. He dropped his face into his hands. I don't know, he choked out. I don't know. We sat in that for a long while. No sound but his breathing and the old fridge humming. After a while, he wiped his face. His voice went small again. Ma, I signed the paper. I blinked. What? He reached into his jacket and pulled out the agreement. My agreement. Signed, dated, his name in ink. Riley's mad, he repeated, almost to himself. But I signed it. I told her we owed you that because it was true. I took that paper in my hands and my heart started pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I looked at his signature like it was a photograph of him when he was 5. I also called Ernest, he said. My head snapped up. Ernest? My landlord Ernest? Yeah, I told him if he tries to push you out, I'm going to file a report with housing. I told him I got a lawyer and everything. I almost laughed. You don't have a lawyer, I said. He smiled a little through the mess of his face. I said I got Marco. I had to cover my mouth for a second so I wouldn't cry too hard. And, he said, wiping at his nose with the back of his hand like a boy, I told Riley's mum the downstairs is hers for now, but you get first floor. Nobody touches first floor but you. I don't care what anybody says. I said it in front of everybody so nobody can twist it later. I told them you're not an extra. You're not company. You're part of their house. If they don't like that, they can leave. I sat back in my chair. Let me tell you something. We talk a lot about revenge like it's fire raining down. Sometimes revenge is not you burning somebody. Sometimes revenge is someone finally being forced to face themselves and say out loud what they've done. Sometimes revenge is the apology that took years to come out of their mouth. Sometimes revenge is, I told them you're not an extra. Does that fix everything? Number, let me be real here. Number, it does not erase the words I heard him say in my living room. It does not erase the way I felt when I realized I was not real family. It does not erase the sting of knowing my future was made into a secret bargaining chip. Hurt like that settles in your bones. It becomes part of you. Some of it never leaves. But that moment with my son in front of me, shaking and honest and scared to lose me, was a kind of justice I didn't know I was ever going to get. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't clean. It still hurt, but it was real. We sat together for a long time after that with no talking, just breathing the same air, which was something we hadn't done in months without someone else in the room. Finally, he stood. He kissed my forehead, not like the thanks for the money, Ma kiss, different, softer. He whispered, I love you, like he hadn't said those words in too long, and they almost got stuck on the way out, and I believed him. Now, I'm going to tell you how things stand today, because I promised you the whole story, and I keep my word. The house closed. They moved in. Miss Paulette did take the downstairs. Sweet. I will not lie to you. I did not love that part. But Andre made sure my space on the first floor was set up before anybody hung a curtain in any other room. He brought over my chair himself. He brought over my lamp. He set up a little shelf with my teacups. He didn't ask Riley where it should go. He asked me. Here, good, Ma, he said. Oh, yeah, I said. Here's good. They don't call it my room. We don't use that language. We call it Mum's side of the house. Andre says that around everyone. He says, Mum's side. He says it loud. He says it like a fact, because it is a fact now and not a secret promise. Papers make things real. Signatures make things real. Saying it in front of other people makes things real too. Do I live there full time? Not yet. I still sleep most nights in my apartment because it takes me time to move slow and I don't owe anybody speed. But we have Sunday dinners again, real ones, not pity plates dropped off at my door. We sit at one table and Andre cooks. Yes, you heard me. He cooks. He learnt how to do my rice. It's still a little sticky, but I eat it. And I tell him it's perfect because watching your son try is sweeter than any seasoning. Riley, we're not best friends. I won't pretend. She still looks at me sometimes like I'm a chair she didn't order, but she doesn't talk slick anymore. She knows now I have a voice and I will use it. She knows now there are papers with her name in them too. She knows now that if she tries to push me out, Andre will not back her the way he used to. She doesn't have the same power. She doesn't get Riley said treatment the way she used to. That is a shift you can feel in the walls. Miss Paulette, I'll tell you something that might surprise you. We've started talking, not little fake talk, real talk. Turns out she was scared too. She thought I was going to hate her. She told me she never wanted to take my space. She said she didn't know about the promises Andre made to me. She said Riley didn't tell her. You could see in her face that she meant it. We sit sometimes in the yard with coffee and we talk about our daughters and sons and how funny it is to be this age and still feel like you're in the middle of someone else's choices. Do I trust any of them blindly? Number, that part of me is gone. And it's not coming back. I check the agreement once a month. I keep my copies in a fireproof box. I go to my follow-up meetings with Marco. He updates my will when I ask. Gloria's name is still in there. So is my niece, Sophia now, the one who calls me every week just to hear my voice, not to ask for anything. Love shows itself. Watch who shows up for you with empty hand. Those are your people. And Andre, he still slips. I won't sit here and lie and say he turned into the perfect son in 1 week. He still gets quiet when Riley's upset. He still wants everyone to be happy, all at once, and that is not how life works. He still has that part of him that wants to fix it without dealing with it. But there's a new part too, a part that looks at me and remembers, oh, she's not a backup plan. She's not an extra. She's my mother. I'll tell you, the moment I knew that part was real, it happened last Sunday. We were sitting at that table in Maple Point. The kids were colouring. Miss Paulette was telling a story about her sister who used to hide money in soup cans. Riley was checking something on her phone. I was sipping my tea, listening, feeling more inside than outside for once. Andres stood up in the middle of it and tapped his spoon on the glass like people do when they're about to make a toast at a wedding. He said, I just want to say something. I want to say thank you to my mum for everything she did to get us here. We wouldn't have this house without her. This is her house too. The room went quiet. All eyes turned to me. I felt my face get hot. But I didn't look down. I held his gaze. He was looking at me with the face he used to have when he was little, and he'd bring me a dandelion and call it a rose. And he said, say something, Ma. His voice cracked on Ma. So I did. I said, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to have a place. I'm glad we're together. But I want everybody at this table to understand something. I am not here because I begged. I'm here because I belong. There's a difference. Nobody said a word, not even Riley. Then Andre wiped his face with his hand and laughed a little. Yeah, he said, sniffling like a kid. That part. And all at once, everyone relaxed. The kids went back to colouring, and Miss Paulette said, Amen. Riley let out a breath like she'd been holding it for a year. Andre leaned down and kissed the top of my head. I felt something settle in me then. Not perfect peace. Number, more like ground, like my feet finally felt the floor. Before I end this, I want to tell you something, and I want you to take it with you when you close your eyes tonight. You are allowed to protect what you have left. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how much they tell you to be reasonable or don't make this ugly or don't ruin the family. I don't care if the person hurting you is your child. I don't care if you love them. You can love someone and still say, no, you don't get to use me up and throw me out. That no does not make you cruel. That no makes you alive. So when I first started talking, I said I was standing in my kitchen holding papers that changed everything. That part was true. The papers helped. The lawyer helped. The bank helped. But do you want to know what really changed everything? The moment I chose myself. The moment I said, not this time. The moment I stopped letting love be an excuse to disappear. This is Revenge Stories with with Michelle. And if you're still with me right now, if you felt yourself anywhere in my story, I want you to do something. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Tell me if you've ever been made to feel like a burden in a life you helped build. Tell me if you ever had to take your voice back after years of swallowing it. Subscribe, like, stay. Because your voice matters here. Your story matters too. And don't you ever let anyone tell you different.